evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the world of V-Gaming Junkie News. All that nasty dross was shrunk and squished by my size 13 boot, so there's nothing but pure gaming-related meatiness. It's all about the electronic good stuff as we dive deep in all that's new in the various interactive virtual worlds. We start things off with Nintendo's Direct that was on the 17th. We'll of course be focusing on the major reveals, such as Zelda Skyward Sword coming to the Switch in HD. Apparently it'll feature both motion controls and button-only controls. Hopefully they include an option to make Fee silent outside of plot-relevant dialogue, because her constant explanations can get tiresome fast. While the game has some other issues like being aggressively linear, that would at least help. Second is that there's going to be a new Mario Golf in the form of Super Rush. I've never really played any of the Mario Golf games myself, only really Wii Sports and a mini golf game that I played some time back. Still, that could be pretty interesting for people who are a fan of it. Oh yeah, and also Mythra and Pyra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 are coming to Super Smash Bros. Apparently there was some blowback by the usual moral Puritans, but all I gotta say is if Ryu can show off his pecs and abs, I think you can allow this. Also, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity will be getting DLC in the form of new lands, weapons, enemies, and the like. I haven't really played that one either, but I loved what little I played of the original and probably should get back to it eventually. Splatoon 3 is also revealed, so that's good that Nintendo didn't give up on that quite yet. Personally, I kinda wish they'd take another crack at Geist so they'd have a mature shooter, but it's fine. There were some other releases announced, notably Stubbs the Zombie is coming back on Switch and a few other platforms, but sadly no information about Metroid Prime 4. It'd be nice to have something to go on besides a logo and Silex appearing in a couple of secret game endings. I trust Retro Studios though, it may not consist of the same people who made the original Prime games and it may have actually been delayed to work on it from scratch, but Doom 2016 faced those hurdles and it turned out great. So in other news, Ubisoft has announced For Honor content that cameos one very interesting indie digging boy. That's right, there's going to be outfits, ornaments, symbols, emotes, and even something called mood effects for the game based off of Shovel Knight. While I understand it's probably not the most interesting news story that a game is getting more microtransactions to tease people spending money on it if they don't want to have to actually grind, it's interesting to see that the indie game has achieved enough popularity to be featured in a AAA game. Granted, he has appeared in various indie games like Yooka-Laylee, but this is still pretty neat if you ask me. It would seem Nintendo isn't the only one who suffered from controller drift, as Sony is actually being sued for theirs. GameSpot reports that Sony is facing a lawsuit over DualShock analog drift for their PS5. The allegation is that Sony knew about these issues since the PS4 and did little, even charging customers shipping to send their controllers back for repairs. For those who are still not in the know, analog drifting is when the analog sticks are off enough that it causes them to behave unexpectedly in games by being off from center. It was a problem for the Nintendo Switch, and it seems PS5 has the same thing. Now it makes me wonder if the Xbox Series X is free of such an issue, or if we'll be hearing from them next. It's pretty ironic how with the Red Ring of Death that Microsoft is now the only one of the three to not currently be having such problems. So in a funny moment of copyright, the Blizzcon Metallica performance had to have their music replaced with 8-bit video game music. This was done to avoid being struck down by copyright, although it's funny that it's Blizzard of all things having to do this. This is what happens when you have over-eager algorithms ready to pounce at anyone who would dare use your stuff in it, Metallica. People have pointed out how funny it is too, since Metallica is the one that fought so hard against things like Napster that led to the current DMCA situation in the first place. This is the fruits of your labor, not getting free advertisement for your music because it's been replaced with something that sounds nothing like it. That's pretty freaking funny if you ask me. Speaking of Blizzard, it seems they're remastering Diablo II. And in case you didn't think such terms could get any more confusing, it's actually not just enhancing some assets and making it into HD. Rather, the game engine is being completely remade from scratch with 3D models, although you can apparently switch between the new and old graphics on the fly if you really want to. Now the reason why I say remastering is confusing because here's the way I see it. If it's simply placed onto a system with minimal change besides controls for the system, it's a port. If there's enhancements like better effects or better resolution, maybe a bit of new content, then it's a remastering. If the art assets and engine are completely transformed with gameplay mostly the same, it's a remake. If the graphics, gameplay, and even the story are so transformed that it barely resembles the original, it's a reimagining. That's the way I'd define the terms at least, and I think that makes the most sense. In other words, I'd classify this as a remake of Diablo II, but you do you, Blizzard, and let me know in the comments below if you disagree. Finally, it would seem Apple is attempting to use the court system to force Valve to hand over user data that it doesn't even need. According to Game Informer, Apple attempted to get a subpoena for Steam to hand over sales data in order to get a picture of what kind of impact the Epic Game Store has on the market. They want a list of products, release dates, prices, and even user data. Valve, for their part, refuses, and I'm kind of on their side here. They are absolutely right when they say that this has nothing to do with Fortnite, which is what the whole thing is even about. From Valve's perspective, it's essentially Apple trying to bully them into giving up personal information just so they can try to get Epic for something that isn't even related to the suit itself. I think of it like character assassination, trying to make them look bad, and Valve shouldn't have to compromise their own private data just to give Apple ammo to use against Epic. And as always, from the page of Games Radar, it's time for the next week's round of release dates. Starting out on the 23rd, we've got Persona 5 Strikers for PC, PS4, and Switch, and Rogue Heroes Ruins of Tasos for just PC and Switch. The 25th has Code Realize Wintertide Miracles, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, and Hellpoint for Switch. Finally, the 26th sees Bravely Default 2 for Switch and Hot Brass for PC. This week's Epic freebie until next Thursday is a 2-for-1 special. The first is Absolute Drift, which seems to be an indie vehicular game where you of course mainly drift around for points. While it looks pretty nice and charming, the next one is sure to really knock your socks off. The second freebie is in fact Rage 2. That's right, id Software's Wasteland shooter that released less than 2 years ago is now free to grab. If you have any interest at all, I highly recommend it. And as always, that rounds out this news week. I hope you enjoyed it and were well enough informed. In case you didn't know by now, I Let's Play every single day, 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, live stream Mondays and Fridays unless otherwise specified at 4:30 p.m, and these news programs are Sundays at 6 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time, of course, but you can always subscribe and Falcon Punch that bell icon if you don't want to worry about keeping track of time zones. A like is always appreciated for those algorithms, but I just hope you genuinely liked it, and that is it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in with me. Spread this video around like the stars in the midnight sky, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, have a good one, and I'll see you next week.